Okay, good afternoon. I just want to continue talking about personal agency. And one aspect of it when I was growing up as a kid is that a lot of my sense of who I was, which started to develop in grade school, really was about things that were not personal, that I thought had or experienced, but that did not depend on other people. And my continuing to enjoy them as an adult sometimes is problematic in terms of some of the problems we have today. For example, I was behind physically. By about third grade, I realized I was falling behind physically. We think that might have been because of measles at the end of first grade, so that's one reason why I'm very pro-vaccine. But I also, at the same time, for some reason, wanted to take piano, and then I became very good, had developed a very good musical ear for remembering and identifying classical music that I heard, and I started collecting records in about the time I was in high school, and this is photo viewers are a little bit slow. And the idea of having a collection like that was very important. You can see here some of the other pictures. Middle school, my elementary school, which is now a hospice center, and then my high school, which I graduated the year Kennedy was enacted, and then the music system I had in my father's basement. I was also learned to play chess and got fairly good at it as an adult, almost had a 2000 rating for a while. But these are all things, and I also traveled a lot. I don't, and probably made over 100 trips or more than that in my adult life, where I flew someplace or took a train someplace and rented a car and toured all around, usually by myself, although sometimes with other people, particularly early in adulthood. And these activities were real important to me, but when they're not connected to other people at all, I mean in a way that demands you be responsible for them, in a way that becomes a little bit problematic over a lifetime, because you're using a lot of resources, and there's driving a car, a rental car, well, that's using gasoline, that's using fossil fuels. And you can imagine the moral arguments, the climate change and everything. And I saw my life as sort of segmented. I saw my life as work as being one thing, the possessions I had, particularly the record collection, as being part of my identity. That became very important. It became controversial at times. But I did not see having responsibility for other people in the same way. One of the things about the music, I did a lot of composing and a couple of piano sonatas. You can see the original manuscript for one of them was entered in a contest when I was 16. That's actually quite interesting. You can look at, for example, the report cards back in junior high school, the progress of the pupil as an individual, and then the progress of the pupil as a member of a group. Well, I wasn't very good at being a member of a group. I was behind and physically, but I had the reputation as a good student, and that became important to my sense of identity. Here's an example of American history. But again, I also had an attitude that if I was going to be interested in somebody, they had to be somebody I could look up to, and I did not consider their circumstances. And today you would think about whether they were a member of an oppressed group or intersectionality or something, or that's something that the left would demand of someone today. Nobody thought that way back in the 50s and 60s. Somebody either made it or they didn't, and that's how I felt about my own life. but my life was divided into the things I had and the things I was good at, like the music and so forth, and sometimes the chess. And then interpersonal things was a totally separate thing, and then work was still a separate thing. So my life was sort of divided into 3 segments, and it was quite captivating all the time, the entire time I led it. But this all started to change with the internet, which will be another video. But you know, it was all very morally problematic. Another thing is I felt that people had to be competitive. We had a draft, and those, excuse me, this allergy. We had a draft during the Vietnam era, which I grew in, and if you weren't a good student, you might be drafted and get a dangerous MOS, and that's another story, which is interesting, is told in my books. But I kind of looked at people as either succeeding or failing, which you can imagine how that plays out today with the attitudes of being expected to be part of a group and being expected to be part of a movement and so forth, and being expected to be connected to other people emotionally, which we learned more from the left. I was, in a sense, very selfish, but I thought I was quite interested in Ayn Rand and so forth. That's how I saw things. I'm going to get into sexuality in another video, and that becomes a big wild card. Another important thing was the travel. I think I mentioned that. And that tied in, that started with my work life, with job interviews and being flown places and renting a car and so forth. But then that became very interesting later in my personal life, which will be in another video.